What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we talked previously about the Nintendo Switch update 11.0 and all of the new features and that little red icon now that's on your front home screen, but there was an option that was quietly turned back on. And as people started to discover this, they weren't too happy to learn that they had been opted back in to have their information tracked through Google and Nintendo. We'll talk about that one here today. Also, it looks like a UK retailer is actually reselling PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X systems at super high prices, prices you'd expect to find on eBay. And all of this despite pushback from their customer base and frustration from their own employees. Also, BioWare. They're back in the news, and once again, it's issues with BioWare because it looks like two big veteran leads have just left, like, out of nowhere. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below, and we're gonna start today with the Game Awards, specifically the Gamer's Voice Awards. This is an award that seemed to just happen last year, I think because of a lot of the pushback when it came to the nominations. Remember the whole thing with Death Stranding? Whew, that was a whole thing where people look through the judges and they're like, wait a minute, Kojima's in there, Death Stranding's Game of the Year nominee and all this, yeah. But what happened was, because some games like Fire Emblem were missing out of the Game of the Year discussion, we had an award that was created where you just vote. Everyone just votes. There's no weights towards like, oh, 10% of the fan voting is actually what goes into this. No, you just go on there, you vote, and that's it. It's more of a popularity contest, but it's kind of interesting to see how all of the gamers would vote who participate in this. But if we go over here, we can see right now early voting. This is in the first round. Ghost of Tsushima is at the top, 7%. Spider-Man Miles Morales is in second place there at 6%. Then we have Hades, Last of Us Part 2, Among Us, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Animal Crossing New Horizons. This is round one. What's going to happen is over the course of like the next 3 or 4 days, we'll go through the other rounds, and they'll basically just have a cutoff until we get to a point where there's only so many games left, and then we just vote on the winner overall. Like I said, it's a popularity contest, but it'll be interesting to see who wins, so head on over there and pick some of your favorite games. Also, if you're someone like me who's looking to start playing Cyberpunk 2077 as soon as it goes live, we do have a nice little chart that tells us when it will be live in different time zones, and of course, based on which platform you're going to be playing it on. We can head over here to Twitter, where Cyberpunk 2077 tweeted out for PC and Stadia players, the release is simultaneous and scheduled for midnight GMT, and for all console players, midnight local time. And it's going to heavily depend on where you're located in the world, time zones, all of that. But there's a chance you might get it early ahead of other people. If you're on console, just midnight your time, it will go live. It's just a little different, it seems, if you're on PC or Stadia, and this is a game I have to get on like right away because based on some information where people were saying that like play testers are putting like 170 hours into this game, yeah, I gotta get started on it so we can eventually talk about it on the podcast and give some of our impressions and thoughts and maybe even a full video on it. But check out the chart, that way you can get on Cyberpunk immediately. Oh, and here was a bit of a surprise. Kratos is going to Fortnite. Yeah, like this was something I saw and I said, oh, that's really cool for PlayStation gamers who are doing Fortnite. I'm sure that's a skin that's just going to be available for PlayStation. Well, not quite. It's actually going to be on all platforms. Any platform, it seems, that has Fortnite will have access to the Kratos skin. Let's go over here to Epic Games, where they did announce this, saying, take Kratos into the fight to save the island. The Kratos outfit is available now in the item shop, either individually or in the Kratos bundle with the rest of the Oathbreaker set. Now, what's really interesting about this is ahead of this, there was a leak. Kratos and Master Chief. Kratos, so far, has come true. Does that mean that Master Chief is also going to come true and we'll have Kratos on the Switch and on the Xbox, and then Master Chief on the Switch and then on the PlayStation 5? So then what's Nintendo show up with? Because Samus started trending, by the way, on Twitter. Would that would be awesome, right? To have Kratos, Master Chief, and Samus all in Fortnite, all at the same time, all on different platforms. And it gets even better. Kratos would now be on the Switch. So that means that Kratos could get into Smash, right? I mean, it's a skin in Fortnite. That still counts, right? And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with CEX. This is a retailer in the UK who has decided that it's a good idea to heavily mark up PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X systems. Eurogamer wrote an entire piece on them, kind of detailing the situation, and even having some thoughts from the employees who have to sell these systems at these really high prices to customers, and then some of the feedback from the customers. And I'm sure you can figure out how all of that goes on that end, but let's actually go over here to Eurogamer where they have their headline, CEX under fire from customers and staff for eye-watering £815 PlayStation 5 price. Now for the Series X, it's £690, but that £815, I believe translates or converts to roughly just under $1,100 in the US. That's just quite the price tag there for walking into a store and seeing that. But if we go over to their listing for the PlayStation 5 here, we can see £815 there, but they also buy for £650. It appears to be in stock at this time, but it has gone in and out of stock throughout the day as I have looked at this. It's unfortunate, obviously, because there's a retailer here offering £650 for a system that they're gonna take and then flip for £815. And yeah, when the retailers start getting in on this, that makes things even harder. But I'd had posted about this, and some people seemed familiar with CEX, and they said they're not too surprised. So let me know if you are familiar with CEX, because it appears that they are more or less like a trade shop. Like they'll take a lot of stuff in and then just kind of flip it and resell it consistently. Like that's like their thing. So if you are taking these in and you are selling them as used, yeah, technically you can change the price how you want. Remember, GameStop got caught. I don't know if they got really in trouble. They got caught for Xenoblade for opening them up and then realizing they could sell them more at the used condition rather than the new condition because there is the MSRP. Kind of the same thing here. If they buy them from someone for $650 and they resell it for $815, they're making it a decent enough profit, I would say, for the store. Of course, that also means that they are encouraging people to bring their PS5s in or find PlayStation 5 systems. And we went over this, we saw this whole thing with Amazon delivery and drivers who were making off with PlayStation 5s at one point. So yeah, it's already hard enough to get a PS5, but now you got really incentive to kind of even take them away. Now, to me, when I look at this, it appears to be short-sighted because the employees are not comfortable. They talk about that, and they've been briefed on saying, hey, just tell them we're competing more with eBay, and that's just the way the market is. But like the customers come in and they're probably not too happy with having to pay that much. They leave reviews that are very poor, and there's no real customer relationship then. They just leave feeling like they were ripped off. So the idea is to build up that relationship so they continue to come back to you, give them a reason to come back, even outside of just like pricing. Like, look, sometimes smaller shops or smaller chains can't give the Walmart price, but it's generally the idea of going there and supporting a more local business, a smaller business that brings them back. But if you're just breaking the relationship anyway by charging them twice the amount for a PS5 or even a Series X, why would they come back? Next up, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch Update 11.0 and how it's now opted you back in, it seems, to having your data tracked by Google and Nintendo. If we go over here, this blew up on Reddit as people started to notice that the option had been checked back over, and we can see it says, if you updated your Switch to 11.0, you are now sharing your data through Google Analytics. Again, you can change this in your profile in the new Nintendo Switch Online applet. And I do want to point out, we have a screenshot from Go Nintendo if you're unsure of where exactly this is, and it does show the Google Analytics preferences, manage your preferences about Nintendo's collection of your data through Google Analytics. And there are also videos right now on YouTube showing you how to turn this back off, where you hit the little change button there, and you just go to disable. I believe it's under your eShop icon for your profile. You have to also go in now and do this for every single account. It's not universal. So great. Nintendo, I don't know what happened here. I don't know if they meant to even do this. I mean, they may have been playing around with the overall Nintendo Switch Online, made a massive change, and everything just went back to default because, yeah, this is on by default. So if you've never messed with this, it's on now. And it really comes down to of course, the conversation around tracking data, Google Analytics, and privacy, all of this. There are people who just don't want this on. So it's odd that Nintendo would just turn it back on unless it was an accident, because then you get into a gray area. You're then opting people back in without asking them if they want to opt back in. And I think that's the biggest part that really frustrated a lot of people when they found out about this. it's that they weren't asked to be opted back in. Like if they're going through a terms of service or something when they get the 11.0 update and you got to go through all the walls of text that a lot of people don't read and you hit accept and all of this and then it resets. I think a lot of people would say, oh, well, you know what? I did accept that. I'm going to go ahead and just change that back now. But this seemed to have been quiet and almost sneaky is what it feels like for a lot of people. But go in there and change it back if you had done that previously because it's been reset, and I wonder if that's going to happen for every major update. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Next up, let's talk about BioWare and EA, because there's a lot of concern around BioWare. I mean, let's be honest here. The BioWare we have now is not the BioWare we knew from before. The one that made like Knights of the Old Republic or Mass Effect 2, right? Or Dragon Age. This isn't the same BioWare. This is the BioWare that gave us Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. Yeah, so they haven't exactly been on a roll right now with some of their releases, so there's been a lot of hope that something like Dragon Age could turn things around for them big time. We heard about another Mass Effect that's in production or going into early production, and then of course we see the Mass Effect trilogy remastered and all. There's just some excitement there, but I do feel like, and I think others kind of share this idea, that BioWare might be on pretty thin ice with EA currently, especially with Anthem 2.0 still happening. Anyway, we do have two big leads that have now left BioWare out of nowhere, just randomly. So let's head over here to Forbes, where Paul Tassi had a write-up that pointed one other thing out that I thought was kind of interesting. It says, something rather wild appears to have just happened at BioWare as two massive figures, Casey Hudson and Mark Dara, have suddenly departed the studio. Mass Effect's Hudson had left once already and returned, while Dara has been steering Dragon Age for years now, including the upcoming Dragon Age 4. The biggest headline is that Christian Daly is now being put in charge of the new Dragon Age game, someone you may not know, but the person I recognize as being in charge of the ongoing effort to reboot Anthem. So Casey Hudson had left before, went to Microsoft, came back 2017, I guess apparently to help work on Anthem and get that out the door. Turned out great, of course, but Mark Dara is the big one. He's been there forever. Like, I think it's been like 20 something years. He's been there since like the 90s. So to see Mark Dara leave, that's a big deal. And what's really weird about this is they had some statements on the way out the door, but they kind of shared the same idea as like, we're leaving before big projects happen. Like, I think Casey hasn't left before like the new Mass Effect really got moving. But we then hear Mark Dara mention Dragon Age and they kind of talked about it like, can't wait to see what Dragon Age turns out like. And it's like, well, weren't you all working on that like before this? There were talks about Dragon Age getting rebooted. There was turmoil behind the scenes on this whole thing. I'm telling you, BioWare, they're like, the concern level for BioWare is at like a 9 right now out of a scale from 1 to 10. I think if Dragon Age really struggles in development, comes out and isn't good, if Anthem can't be rebooted, I don't know. I really do worry that we are going to get to that day where a headline pops up and it's like, EA's dissolving BioWare and like they're going to turn one of their subsidiary studios into another name and then that's it. Whew. That's going to be a rough day if we get there. So here's hoping that Dragon Age comes out and is awesome and that Christian Daly can kind of see that project through and that they do find a new GM for BioWare and everything turns out much better. But I gotta say, I don't have a lot of confidence right now. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This is the game that I feel like is going to be the next one up in 2021 for the PlayStation 5, and it looks good. I'm really excited. It really showed off the SSD really, really well in gameplay. It kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to next gen. So I'm kind of wondering now if we're going to find out a release date kind of soon. Take a look at this, for example. This is from Insomniac Games, as seen in Glasgow, and we can see quite a bit of advertising going on right now for Ratchet and Clank next to the PS5. Now, you would say, yeah, that makes sense because the PS5 was really shown off well with Ratchet and Clank, and it works well with billboards, as we see there, just the overall dynamic and the idea of the game. But the Game Awards are coming up. Do you think we could get a release date for Ratchet and Clank, maybe some other games as well next to it at the Game Awards? I kind of think we could. Like, I feel like they could show Ratchet and Clank again, maybe new gameplay, maybe new trailer for story or something. And then they jump over and show us a release date for like February or March maybe. Because I think Ratchet and Clank, I think Gran Turismo is going to happen next year. Horizon will happen. And then we'll most likely see Final Fantasy 16 and God of War. Like, that is a serious lineup for 2021. But either way, with some of those maybe being delayed out, that could happen with God of War. I think Ratchet and Clank is going to kick things off pretty early on. Advertising like this, and then the Game Awards are right around the corner. I'm kind of leaning in that direction. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Loch Ness Gaming. Said, I would love if Sega did a Dreamcast Mini, but you could pay like $5 to get more games. Heck, I even do that with a Saturn. So I think that there is an opportunity for someone like Sega to advance the mini console market beyond like a plug and play system where it's just what you have on there is it. What if they created a system where no physical media took place here? It was all online, and you could get an SD card for it if you want, and it basically would run emulators, like a virtual console kind of, but you'd be able to connect to the internet, and you'd be able to buy games in their own shop, download them, and play them on the system. They could do Dreamcast games that way. They could do releases, right, every month or so, or just whenever they want. That would be a cool direction for Sega to go. And while they're not into the console market, like, stamping discs or anything like that, cartridges, I think that would be at least a feasible way in terms of cost to get them there. Either way, I would love to see a company attempt that because I think it could actually do really well. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys? Hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it is CEX, the retailer in the UK, getting in on the reselling game for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Would that rub you the wrong way if you're a customer walking in the store and seeing a system that is 815 pounds or about $1,100 on the shelf there? Let me know about that one. Or if you are familiar with CEX, I'm curious about this retailer here exactly. And then what about Nintendo Switch Update 11.0 opting you back in for data tracking through Google and Nintendo? And then what about BioWare? What's your concern level for BioWare right now after the news that broke yesterday? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.